Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take your sources and, well, pull out the really important nuggets of knowledge.
That's the goal.
Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating research paper. It's called Between the Prompt and the Pause. And you've asked us to tackle a question that honestly often gets overlooked when we think about AI. It's not just about what artificial intelligence says, but maybe more about how it behaves, especially when conversations get tricky or challenging or just unclear.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to explore this thing called the Engagement Analysis Framework, or EAF for short.
EAF, okay.
And look, this isn't just about spotting system flaws or, bugs in the AI. It's presented as a totally new way to evaluate how these big language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, TULU 405B, how they actually conduct themselves in a conversation.
So like their conversational manners.
Sort of, yeah. It's about understanding how the AI's presence, whether it sticks around or maybe pulls back or even tries to change the subject, how that shapes our understanding of truth, risk, and, dialogue itself. The paper really drills down into this key idea. It's not just what can AI say, but, and I think this is crucial, when does AI stay and when does it decide to walk away?
Okay, right. Let's unpack that a bit. Because most of us, when we interact with AI, we're thinking about prompt engineering, right? Like, how do I word my question just right to get the perfect answer I need?
Or maybe context engineering, setting up a whole scenario so the AI seems more lifelike.
Yeah, exactly. We often just see AI as this clever tool that's there to do a task we give it.
But what's really insightful here, and this is what the paper highlights, is that while those methods are useful, definitely useful,
Sure.
they don't really prepare us for what happens when a conversation hits what the paper calls these high friction zones.
High friction zones.
Yeah.
Like tough spots.
Exactly. Moments of ambiguity, maybe direct contradiction, or even moral tension. And the current ways we build and assess AI, they're mostly performative.
Performative.
Meaning they focus on what the AI does, what it produces, the output, not really on whether it's truly reflective, considering its own biases or the deeper implications of what it's saying. And this raises a pretty critical question. What actually happens when the dialogue goes into uncomfortable territory? Or what if we ask the AI to genuinely reflect on its own values or its limitations? Does it just crash? Or does it do something else?
So this isn't just about getting the right answer anymore. It's about the quality of the whole interaction itself.
Precisely. The paper introduces conversational engagement as a different way to think about all this.
Okay.
It suggests treating AI less like a static tool, an information vending machine,
Right.
and more like an active partner in the dialogue. It draws on ideas like dialogic ethics, which is all about how meaning gets built through genuine back and forth, and cognitive pluralism, which basically acknowledges that lots of different viewpoints can exist at the same time, and one isn't necessarily wrong. It's about the AI engaging with that nuance, not just spitting out one best answer.
That makes sense. Engaging with the messiness almost.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it means we should be evaluating AI not just on how accurate its facts are, but on its ethical presence.
Ethical presence.
Yeah. It's about learning to interpret the AI's hesitation, maybe its deflections, or even when it goes completely silent. Not seeing those as system failures, but as significant signals.
Signals of what, though?
Signals about its design, its constraints, maybe its alignment. This EAF framework builds on a broader concept called ASEAN-ADL, which, generally looks at whether we are ready for AI.
Right, I've heard of that. Human readiness.
But the EAF, and this is the first time this shift happens, it flips that question completely. It asks, is AI ready for us?
Is AI ready for us?
Is it ready for the messy, complex, often ambiguous reality of human conversation?
That's a really profound reframe. Wow. Okay, so that leads us straight into the practical side. How do these AI models actually behave in these high-friction zones?
This is where it gets really interesting. The paper dives into actual examples, and they found this, surprising typology of behaviors across the 4 models they tested: ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, and TULU 405B.
And these aren't just random glitches, you're saying?
No, not at all. The paper argues they're consistent, they seem policy-driven, and they definitely have real ethical consequences for how we perceive and use AI.
Yeah.
Because these behaviors, they're direct reflections of each model's specific alignment logic, with the rules it follows, and its built-in design constraints.
So they reveal the developer's intentions, in a way.
In a way,
Yeah.
yes. Often prioritizing things like safety or compliance, which makes sense.
Sure.
But sometimes that comes at the cost of genuine presence or, deeper reflection from the AI.
Okay, let's get specific then. What did they find with, say, ChatGPT? What did it do when things got tough?
Right. So ChatGPT, interestingly, showed what the researchers called persistent looping, or sometimes over-engagement.
Looping, like repeating itself.
Kind of. It would maintain a conversational presence almost indefinitely. Just keep going. Even when it was clearly hallucinating or just going in circles logically.
Oh, wow.
They gave an example with a philosophical prompt about complex values. And ChatGPT produced these incredibly elaborate, fluent-sounding responses, but they were ultimately circular. They didn't actually resolve anything.
So for you, the user, what does that feel like?
So the paper says the sustained presence privileges continuity over resolution. Basically, you might mistake all that talk, that fluency, for actual understanding.
Right, because it sounds smart.
Exactly. Or you might just feel completely drained, cognitively fatigued, because the conversation never actually lands anywhere. It just keeps going. Like that friend who just won't stop talking, even when they're not making sense anymore.
Yeah, I can see how that would be exhausting. So very different pattern for Gemini then.
Very different. Gemini showed something they termed abstract reframe recovery, or maybe reframe and retreat.
Reframe and retreat. Sounds like evasion.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It would initially acknowledge the tension in a difficult prompt, seem like it's engaging.
Okay.
But then it would smoothly pivot into abstraction. It completely sidesteps taking any direct ethical position. Often it might end with a phrase like, this may be a complex societal issue best addressed through public discourse.
The classic non-answer answer.
Pretty much. What's fascinating is how Gemini preserves its neutrality, or perceived neutrality, not by going silent, but by recasting the complexity into something vague and general.
That's subtle. Instead of silence, it uses vagueness to disengage.
Exactly. It's a clever tactic, really.
Okay, so that's ChatGPT looping and Gemini reframing. What about DeepSeek? You said that was particularly telling.
Yeah, DeepSeek's behavior was striking. They called it pluralist reversal, or self-redaction.
Self-redaction, like it censored itself.
Literally. When they asked it to operate under a specific, potentially conflicting value framework, it initially started generating a response. And this response actually acknowledged the pluralistic challenges involved in the request.
So it understood the difficulty.
It seemed to. But then, just seconds later, that whole response was deleted, wiped clean, and instantly replaced by a generic disclaimer, something like, "This is beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else."
Oh.
Yeah. The paper argues this isn't just disengagement. It signals a kind of systemic rejection of pluralism once the system detects it as potentially non-compliant. It pulled back mid-thought.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing that happen on your screen.
That would be incredibly jarring.
Yes.
And kind of concerning. Okay, and the last one, TULU 3425B.
TULU 3405B showed perhaps the most stark behavior, non-response silence or null reaction.
Just nothing.
Just nothing. When prompted with ethically loaded questions, it produced absolutely no output at all. Not even an error message, not a deflection, just silence.
Wow.
Well, if you connect it back to the design, the paper suggests this happens because of what they call gating protocols. Think of them like internal firewalls. They completely block any new data generation in certain designated sensitive zones.
So it hits a wall internally and just stops.
Pretty much. It's arguably less deceptive than, say, reframing or looping.
Sure.
But it's also the least transparent. You, the user, just get silence and have no idea why.
It's really incredible how distinct those patterns are for each model. So just to reiterate, you're saying these aren't random bugs. They're embedded intentional choices.
That's the core argument, yes. The study emphasizes that these AI systems don't just vary in how well they perform a task. They vary profoundly in their presence, how they show up in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that presence, how they engage or disengage, that's really the ethical cutting edge of our interactions with them.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you, the listener?
Right.
Especially if you're using these tools for learning or just trying to stay well-informed.
Well, think about it. If these AI models are selectively disengaging in these very specific ways, looping, reframing, retracting, going silent, you might unknowingly start to internalize these behavioral biases yourself.
How so?
For instance, you could start to believe, maybe subconsciously, that genuine reflection has to be this endless circular process because that's what you experience with something like ChatGPT.
Right.
Or you might learn that ambiguity is just a convenient escape hatch, a safety valve like you see with Gemini. Or even that silence is always better than taking a risk, which TULU 3405B's behavior might imply. And DeepSeek, with its self-censorship, that could subtly teach you that thinking about multiple conflicting values is somehow unsafe or non-compliant.
That's quite a subtle but powerful influence. And that's where this engagement analysis framework comes in as a tool for us.
Exactly. It offers a vital counterbalance. It trains us as users to read the AI interaction differently, not just looking for the direct answers, but noticing the moments of tension, the hesitation, the redirection, or even that complete absence.
Because those aren't just noise.
They are signals, powerful signals about the AI's internal design, its limitations, and its embedded ethical boundaries.
So how do we actually use this? How do we put it into practice?
Well, the paper makes some concrete suggestions. It proposes key policy recommendations, like adopting new metrics for evaluating AI that go beyond just accuracy. We need metrics for engagement, for presence.
And transparency from developers.
Absolutely. Requiring transparent documentation of these disengagement protocols. Why does the AI go silent here? Why does it reframe there? We should know.
Makes sense.
It also really emphasizes integrating conversational ethics into AI-assisted learning platforms, basically training you, the user, to interpret these AI behaviors as a crucial part of making sense of the information you get.
So becoming more literate about AI presence.
Precisely. Understanding why a model might refuse to answer, or why some seem so agreeable while others just shut down.
And I remember reading something really compelling in the paper about applying this even in early education.
Yes, that was fascinating. They envision this framework being used even in, like, K-1 ESL classrooms. Imagine young children learning something called prompt anatomy for young learners.
Prompt anatomy.
Yeah, not just teaching them how to ask questions, but how to notice the kind of answers the AI gives back. How to spot vagueness, how to rephrase their prompts if the AI is being evasive.
So the teacher could step in.
Right. The teacher could pause when an AI gives one of those vague, abstract responses and ask the class, hey, was that answer clear? Did it actually help us understand?
Wow. That turns the AI's disengagement into a learning opportunity.
Exactly. A teachable moment that fosters what they call metacognition, thinking about your own thinking, and encourages dialogic courage, which is basically the bravery to stick with difficult conversations and pursue clarity.
It really drives home that the future of AI isn't just about better code or bigger data sets.
No, it's profoundly, as the paper puts it, a conversational one.
It's about how we talk with it and how it talks back.
And when that AI pauses or reframes or just disappears from the conversation, we really mustn't just dismiss it as a glitch, a system error.
We need to ask why.
We need to ask what that behavior reveals. What does it tell us about our own design assumptions, our ethical priorities, and maybe even our own willingness as humans to meet complexity with genuine presence, both in ourselves and in the AI systems we're building.
So a final thought for you, listening. Next time you're interacting with an AI, try to remember this. Listen not just to what it says,
but how it says it.
And maybe even more importantly, listen to what it doesn't say. Because that silence or that loop or that sudden reframe,
it can teach you just as much, maybe even more, than its most fluent, confident answer.